Attendance figures of 2022 in the Church of England have come out and they are not pretty reading. Are we in crisis? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. On this channel, you'll get my views as a vicar on all the Christian news that is happening around the world. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and as soon as the video is released, you will hear about it straight away. So attendance data for 2022 has been released by the Church of England, and they are not showing a great picture. We are still in decline, like many other denominations. But thank God, some denominations are growing, but thank God even more that Jesus is on the throne. So back in May, I did another video, which you can watch here, which looked at another report that showed just under half of Britons believed in God. And this is only fueling poor attendance in our churches. And then in September, I did another video, again, you can watch it here, that asked, where is the urgency? If this is a serious condition, why are we not trying to do everything that we can to try turn this decline around? And yes, there are churches and denominations that are growing, and we thank God for that. But the overall trend is decline. And in my denomination, that has been just exacerbated by COVID, and the data is not, as I said, for pretty reading. So the article I'm reading is from Covenant, American, and they're reporting on this. And they say, after COVID, the deepening decline of the Church of England. COVID has taken decline and accelerated it. You could say even have put it on steroids. They say COVID was bad for the Church of England, and new data showed just how bad. Overall, the church has lost 1 in 5 of its Sunday worshippers during COVID. For children at worship, it's worse. Long-term decline, coupled with COVID, has left much of the church in deep trouble. Yes, there are wonderful pockets of vitality, but their numbers are shrinking. The new data show that during COVID, the condition of much of the church has moved from serious to critical. So what does serious to critical look like? Well, here's some numbers. Usual Sunday attendance back in the year 2000 was 950,000. 2010, just under 800,000. 2019, the first full year before COVID, 680,000. So even without COVID, we are declining. By the time we get to 2022, after COVID, the first full year open, 549,000 people attending church on a regular basis. So let's have a look at some of the dioceses they've chosen for this article to see the decline pre-COVID and then after COVID. So Bath and Wales in 1990 was 33,500. Just before COVID in 2019, just under 17. And after COVID, just over 14,000 in 2022. Manchester, just over 35 in 1990. Just before COVID, 18.5 nearly. 2022, 14,000. Ely shows the same downward trend, 17, 13, 11. Southwark, which is my next door neighbour diocese, 40.5 to 31.5 to 25. And then London, which was always the diocese that was growing and bucking the trend. In 1990, went from just under 52. We're growing 2019, 53,500. Only diocese that was growing in the Church of England, but now has declined, hasn't seen that bounce back, and in 2022. So you can see that apart from London, the Church of England was declining anyway, but COVID just exacerbated it all. And they go on to say, you can see the deep fall in Sunday attendance over recent decades and how this sped up since COVID. All dioceses have lost between a fifth and a quarter of their Sunday worshippers between 2019 and 2022. And this accelerated deep existing decline. Some dioceses like Bath and Wales and Manchester have lost 60% of their Sunday congregation since 1990. Some like London and Ely have done less poorly, but have seen a sharp drop since 2022. Every single Church of England diocese is shrinking. That's just not the bad news that we are shrinking. The key is children. And when we lose children, then we are going to be in a really desperate state. The data are worse when you look at children. Sunday attendance for children is 23% down overall between 2019 and 2022. So a massive, nearly a quarter decline in children's attendance just because of COVID. The bulk of the adult believers come to faith in the first decades of their life. Things were bad regarding children and worship before COVID. In Last Race of England, The church has no children in its churches on Sunday. This is moving beyond decline towards extinction. And this is huge. If many people come to faith in those early years, and the majority, if they are not in church, it's not just the children, it's the families. If the families are not in church and we're not nurturing them and nurturing the children coming through as well, then how are we going to reach those children as they get into young adulthood and as they start living their lives? We're not going to reach them unless something drastically changes. What that is, well, it might just be a massive move of the Holy Spirit. It's not good news for children or families, but there is another side that we need to look at, as they go on to say. The net result is that the church has markedly aged since COVID. Those that are left are on average old. Worshipping communities markedly aged during 2019 to 2022, with 36% of the church being over 70, whereas 13.5% of the population of England are over 70. So we have a third of our church over the age of 70, well above the average of the generation in England, just 13.5%, which shows amongst the older people in the Church of England, there still is a faith and that tradition of going to church, but completely opposite of those who are younger in England. And there's a problem with aging congregations, as it's brought up in the article, that they struggle to fill posts in churches. Wardens and treasurers and the like, they stop being composed mostly of people in their 70s and become composed mostly of people in their 80s, and then they stop. There comes a point when decline tips over to being unviable, and that point is at hand for many congregations. It is true there's so many churches out there who are struggling to find volunteers, not because people don't want to do it, but they've given so much service to the church already and in key positions. Many of them have done them many times or for many years, and they just want to rest or to do something else. And there is nobody coming in to fill those posts. But it's not just the Church of England. It says the United Reformed Church was the main home for Presbyterians and Congregationists in England. It is leading the trend of mainline decline. In 1972, it had 192,000 members. By 2022, it had 37,000. In 50 years, it has shrunk by over 80%. The bulk of its existing churches are small and elderly. This is what ecclesial collapse looks like. British Methodism is on the same path. Decline existed before COVID, but COVID put it on steroids. It led to the largest fall in CV attendance in the last 100 years. The damage is particularly marked with regard to children and families. This vital sector has been hit the hardest. But this is interesting what they say. The British government is conducting an inquiry about lessons to learn from COVID. The church has not followed suit. There is a sense that nobody wants to face just how bad the figures are. Well, the figures are bad. I think they do know. They have published them. But it's not just reading them and saying this is just what it is. It's actually taking action and having some sense of that urgency to get out there and preach the gospel, and especially to reach those children and families. The gospel is for all, but we really need to engage those who do not know even about the gospel. And we have to put this in perspective of where society is as well, as mentioned in one of my earlier videos. This headline from Premier Christianity: half of Britons think religion does more harm than good to society. So a survey was conducted by YouGov and the University of Birmingham, asking 2,000 people from different countries what they thought about mainly science and religion. And the results are quite shocking. Half the respondents from the UK said religion had a negative effect on society. And only 13% think science has a negative effect on society. When asked how reliable people were in giving information from either a religious background or science background, people said theologians were 38% reliable compared to religious leaders at just 27%. Then they said scientists were 81% reliable and evolutionary scientists 68% reliable. So in the religious world, they do not see us as reliable, whether we're theologians or religious leaders, compared to scientists. This all might seem like bad news, but it is not, because it is an opportunity. Yes, decline in attendance in the church has gone from serious to critical. People in the West know less and care less about God. We, as religious leaders and theologians, aren't trusted as much as probably we once were. But that is all an opportunity to get back, get out there, get back into that space where we once were, but we no longer are, and go out and proclaim the gospel, knowing that God is with us. God is for us. and we have the Holy Spirit going before us, and we've got to get on our knees. We've got to pray and fast that we may change our nations once more.